The cold bit through my jacket as I stood on my son's porch, snowflakes settling on my shoulders like tiny judgments. I knocked again, harder this time, my knuckles turning red against the polished wood of the door I had helped install just last summer. "Jason, please, it's freezing out here." My breath formed clouds in the December air. The peephole darkened. Then my son's voice, flat and unfamiliar, came through the door. "You're no longer family. Don't come back." Vral, the lock clicked with finality, echoing in my chest like a gunshot. Before we continue, make sure to subscribe to the channel and tell us in the comments where you're listening from. My name is Daniel Thompson. I'm 62 years old, and until last Christmas, I thought I knew what family meant. I was wrong about a lot of things, it turns out. I'd always been proud of my son. Jason Thompson, successful architect, married to Melanie, father to my 2 grandchildren, Emma and Noah. They lived in a beautiful colonial in the suburbs of Boston that I'd helped them buy with the money from my retirement fund. 3 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, and a backyard where I'd built a treehouse for the kids 2 summers ago, my fingers splintered and bleeding as I hammered each nail with love. "You're the best grandpa ever," Emma had said, her 8-year-old arms wrapped around my neck, smelling of strawberry shampoo and innocence. That was before I discovered what my son really thought of me, before I learned how quickly love can turn to ashes in your mouth. It started small, as these things often do. Melanie began hosting dinner parties I wasn't invited to. Jason started calling less frequently. The grandkids' weekend visits became monthly, then quarterly. I told myself they were busy. I told myself it was normal for families to drift apart and then reconnect. "Dad, we can't make it this Sunday," Jason would say, his voice always distracted, always somewhere else. "Melanie's parents are in town, or Emma has a recital, or work is crazy right now." I'd swallow my disappointment and say, "No problem, son. We'll catch up soon." The lie became easier each time. My wife, Sarah, had died 3 years earlier. Pancreatic cancer that took her in 6 brutal months. She'd been the glue holding our family together, I realized too late. Without her, the distance between Jason and me grew like a living thing, feeding on silence and unspoken resentments. The invitation to Christmas dinner had felt like a lifeline. It came via text message, casual as an afterthought. "Christmas at our place this year, 3 p.m, kids want to see you." I spent 3 days shopping for the perfect gifts. A chemistry set for Emma, who at 10 was showing signs of becoming a scientist. A baseball glove for 8-year-old Noah, specially ordered with his name embroidered on the side. For Melanie, an antique brooch that had belonged to Sarah. And for Jason, my father's pocket watch, a family heirloom meant to be passed down through generations. I arrived at 2:45, arms loaded with carefully wrapped presents, a bottle of expensive scotch tucked under my arm for after-dinner drinks with my son, the kind of father-son moment I'd been craving. Melanie answered the door, her smile tight as a drum. "Daniel, you're early." "Just 15 minutes, I said, trying to peer past her into the warm house that smelled of roasting turkey and cinnamon. "Where are the kids? I can't wait to see them." "They're upstairs getting ready." Her eyes flicked to something behind me. "Actually, there's been a change of plans." That's when I saw them, Melanie's parents, Richard and Catherine Walsh, pulling into the driveway in their Mercedes SUV. The same Richard Walsh, who'd made it clear at Jason and Melanie's wedding that he found me disappointingly blue-collar for the father of his daughter's husband. "What's going on?" I asked, suddenly cold despite my heavy coat. Melanie stepped onto the porch, partially closing the door behind her. "Daniel, I'm sorry, but we're having Christmas with my parents this year. Jason meant to call you, but things have been so hectic." "But the text—" "He invited me. The kids want to see me." Her face hardened slightly. "The children see you plenty, and frankly, your ideas about parenting aren't always aligned with ours." "What are you talking about?" The door opened wider, and Jason appeared, his face a mask I couldn't read. My son, my only child, looking at me like I was a stranger who'd shown up uninvited. "Dad, I'm sorry about the confusion. We should have been clearer." Clearer about what? I was still holding the presents, my arms beginning to ache. Jason, what's happening here? He glanced at Melanie, then back at me. We think it's best if you give us some space. The kids are getting confused by your outdated perspectives. Outdated? Jason, what are you talking about? My voice cracked slightly. I'm their grandfather. You undermined our authority last month, Melanie cut in. Telling Emma she doesn't have to finish her piano lessons if she doesn't want to, after we specifically told her she needs to commit to things she starts. I just said that sometimes it's okay to change your mind if something isn't making you happy, I protested. It's not just that, Jason interrupted. It's everything. The sugary snacks you give them when we've asked you not to. The violent video games you let Noah play. Violent. It was a racing game. The point is, Jason continued, you don't respect our boundaries as parents. I looked from my son to his wife, trying to make sense of this ambush. Behind them, I could see Richard and Catherine Walsh being greeted by Emma and Noah, their small faces lighting up at the sight of their other grandparents. Can I at least give the kids their presents? I asked, my voice smaller than I intended. Jason took the packages from my arms. We'll give these to them later. Say they're from you. Later, but I want to see their faces when... Dad, please don't make this harder than it has to be. Jason's voice was firmer now, a stranger's voice. We'll call you after the holidays to arrange a visit. I stood there, presents gone, dignity hanging by a thread. Jason, this isn't right. This isn't what family does. He looked at me with something like pity. Maybe your definition of family is different from ours. That's when I made my fatal mistake. I got angry. My definition. I raised you by myself after your mother left. I worked 2 jobs to put you through college. I emptied my retirement account to help you buy this house. Jason's face darkened. And you've never let me forget it, have you? Every gift comes with strings attached in your world. That's not true, isn't it? Why don't you tell Melanie about the comment you made at our wedding, about how you hoped she wasn't high maintenance like her mother? I froze. I never said that. Richard heard you. He told us. I looked past them to where Richard Walsh was smirking in the hallway, and suddenly everything clicked into place. The gradual exclusion, the cancelled visits, the growing coldness, all orchestrated by a man who thought I wasn't good enough for his extended family. Jason, whatever you think I said, go home, Dad. He started closing the door. We'll talk after New Year's. I put my hand on the door. Please, at least let me say Merry Christmas to Emma and Noah. That's when he said it. Words I never thought I'd hear from my own son's mouth. You're no longer family. Don't come back. The door closed. The lock turned, and I stood there in the falling snow, a 62-year-old man with nowhere to go on Christmas Day. I don't remember driving home. I don't remember climbing the stairs to my empty house or sitting in Sarah's old rocking chair in the dark. What I do remember is the silence, the kind of silence that has weight and presence, that whispers all your failures back to you in the voices of people you love. The next morning I woke up still in the chair, neck stiff, eyes swollen. My phone showed no missed calls, no apologetic texts. Just the date, December 26th, and the realization that for the first time in my life, I had spent Christmas completely alone. That's when I noticed the envelope on my coffee table, a bank statement I'd forgotten to open before the holidays. I tore it open absently, needing something, anything, to distract me from the hollow ache in my chest. The statement showed a series of withdrawals I didn't recognize, large ones. $5,000 here, $7,500 there, all to the same account number, an account I didn't own. I called the bank immediately, hands shaking as I navigated the automated system. Mr. Thompson, the fraud representative said after reviewing my account, these appear to be wire transfers you authorized in person at our Brighton branch. I've never been to your Brighton branch, I said, panic rising in my throat. I bank at the Somerville location. Let me check the signature card. A pause. Sir, these were signed by someone with your ID. The signatures match our records. That's impossible unless... My voice trailed off as a terrible suspicion took root. Jason had my spare house key. He'd helped me move into this smaller place after I sold our family home to help with his down payment. He knew where I kept important documents, including my passport and birth certificate. "I need copies of those signature cards," I told the representative, "and I need them now." 3 hours later, I was sitting in a police station, staring at photocopied signature cards that showed what looked like my handwriting, authorizing transfers totaling almost $70,000 over the past 6 months. "It's good," the detective admitted, comparing the signatures. "But if you look closely at the loop in the P of Thompson, you can see the hesitation. Someone taking their time to copy rather than writing naturally." "My son," I said, the words like broken glass in my mouth. "My son did this." The detective's face softened with practiced sympathy. "Family fraud is more common than you think, Mr. Thompson. People know your habits, your personal information, your schedule. They know when you're not checking statements closely." I thought about Jason's sudden ability to afford private school for both kids this year. The luxury vacation to Switzerland they'd taken in October. The kitchen renovation Melanie had been showing off on social media. "Will you press charges?" the detective asked. "Would I send my only child to prison? The boy I'd taught to ride a bike, to shave, to drive. The young man I'd helped move into his college dorm, both of us crying when it was time for me to leave." "I need time to think," I said. The detective handed me his card. "Don't take too long, and don't confront him yourself. These situations can get volatile." I spent New Year's Eve alone, alternating between rage and disbelief. How long had this been going on? Was this why they'd been pushing me away, guilt over stealing from me? Or was the theft just a symptom of a deeper estrangement I hadn't wanted to see? On January 2nd, I made my decision. I wouldn't press criminal charges, but I would confront Jason with what I knew. I drove to his house, rehearsing what I would say, how I would remain calm and rational despite the betrayal burning in my chest. The house was dark when I arrived. No cars in the driveway. I was about to leave when I noticed the newspaper on the porch, still in its plastic sleeve, and yesterday's mail overflowing the mailbox. They were gone. A neighbor walking her dog confirmed it. "The Thompsons left for a vacation right after New Year's," she said cheerfully. "Some island in the Caribbean, I think." Melanie was showing everyone pictures of the resort on Facebook. A vacation they'd paid for with my retirement money. While I sat alone in my house, trying to figure out how to make my depleted savings last, I drove to my bank and closed my accounts, opening new ones at a different institution. I changed the locks on my house. I called a lawyer friend who specialized in elder fraud and set up an appointment for the following week. Then I did something I'd been avoiding for months. I opened Sarah's hope chest, the one I'd kept in our bedroom since her death. Inside were photo albums, letters, and a small leather-bound journal, Sarah's private thoughts in the last year of her life. I'd never read it, respecting the privacy she'd maintained even in our closest moments. But now, desperate for connection, for guidance, I opened the journal to a random page. October 15th. "Daniel doesn't see it. He won't see it. Jason has been manipulating him for years, taking advantage of his guilt over working so much when Jason was young. I've tried to talk to him about it, but he defends Jason every time. He's just going through a rough patch. Melanie has expensive taste, but he loves her. Always excuses. Always blind to the truth that our son has become someone who values things over people. Someone who sees his father as a resource to be drained rather than a person to be loved." I read entry after entry, Sarah's observations piercing me with their clarity. She had seen what I couldn't, or wouldn't, see. That our son had grown into a man who measured his worth by what he owned rather than who he was. That Melanie encouraged this materialism, and that together they viewed me as a means to an end rather than family. The final entry, written just weeks before her death, broke me. March 3rd. "I'm afraid for Daniel after I'm gone. Jason will take everything, not just money, but his pride, his sense of self-worth. I've made Daniel promise to stand up for himself, but I know he won't. His love for our son blinds him to who Jason has become. I can only hope that someday something will open his eyes before it's too late. Something had opened my eyes, all right. Being locked out on Christmas Day. Being told I was no longer family. Finding out my son had been systematically stealing from me while pushing me out of his life. 2 weeks later, my lawyer sent certified letters to Jason and Melanie, outlining the evidence of financial fraud and giving them an opportunity to repay the stolen funds before we took legal action. 3 days after that, Jason showed up at my door, face ashen, hands trembling. "Dad, there's been a terrible misunderstanding," he began, not quite meeting my eyes. "I didn't invite him in." "No misunderstanding, Jason. You stole from me. You forged my signature. You committed fraud." "I was going to pay it back," he insisted. "It was just temporary. Melanie's parents were making these investments, and we needed to match their contributions to get in on the ground floor." "Stop," I said, raising my hand. "Just stop. This isn't about money." "Then what is it about? Tell me how to fix this." I looked at my son, really looked at him, and saw a stranger wearing a familiar face. A man who could lock his father out in the cold and say, "You're no longer family," without flinching. "You can't fix this, Jason. Some things once broken stay broken." His eyes widened. "What are you saying? You're going to press charges? Send me to jail? Your own son?" "No," I said quietly. "I'm not pressing charges. The bank might. That's their decision. But I am saying goodbye." "Goodbye? Dad, come on." "I sold the house," I continued, my voice steady despite the pain tearing through me. "I'm moving to Arizona next week. Sarah always wanted to retire somewhere warm." "You can't just leave. What about Emma and Noah? They need their grandfather, do they? You didn't seem to think so on Christmas Day." His face crumpled, the first genuine emotion I'd seen from him in years. "Dad, please, I made a mistake, a terrible mistake, but we're family." I thought about Sarah's journal entries, about standing in the snow while my grandchildren celebrated Christmas with strangers who hadn't built them tree houses or taught them to fish or held them when they were infants. About the years I'd spent making excuses for a son who saw me as a walking ATM rather than a father. "No, Jason, we're not family. Not anymore. Family doesn't steal from each other. Family doesn't lie and manipulate and exclude. Family shows up. Family stays." "Dad, I've already made arrangements for the money you stole to be deducted from your inheritance. Whatever's left after I live my life will go to Emma and Noah's college funds in trust, with my lawyer as executor. Not you. Never you again." I started to close the door, but Jason's foot blocked it. "You can't do this," he said, anger replacing his fake contrition. "After everything I put up with, your outdated opinions, your embarrassing behavior at social events, your constant need for attention." I laughed then, a sad, hollow sound. "Thank you, Jason." "For what?" he snarled. "For confirming what I already knew. That in your mind, loving you was something you put up with rather than something you valued." I pushed the door closed, despite his resistance, engaging the new deadbolt that he didn't have a key to. Through the door, I heard him shouting, threatening, finally pleading. I didn't respond. That was 6 months ago. I live in Sedona now, in a small house with a view of the Red Rocks. I volunteer at a literacy program for adults. I've made friends. Real friends who call just to check in, who invite me to dinner without ulterior motives, who value me for who I am rather than what I can give them. Last week, I received a letter from Emma, 10 years old and already wise enough to find her grandfather's new address and write without her parents' knowledge. Her childish handwriting told me she missed me, that she didn't understand why I'd moved away, that her daddy seemed sad all the time now. I wrote back, telling her I missed her too, that sometimes adults make mistakes they can't fix, that I would always love her and Noah no matter what. I included my phone number, knowing Jason and Melanie would probably intercept any calls, but hoping anyway. Yesterday my phone rang with an unknown number. When I answered, I heard Emma's voice, whispering because she was using her mother's phone without permission. "Grandpa, it's me." "Emma," I said, my heart squeezing painfully in my chest. "How are you, sweetheart?" "I'm okay. Daddy and Mommy are fighting a lot. Daddy sleeps in the guest room now." "I'm sorry to hear that." "Grandpa, are you ever coming back? Noah cries sometimes because he misses you." I closed my eyes against the pain. "I don't know, Emma, that's complicated. Daddy says he made a big mistake, the biggest mistake ever. He says that sometimes." I remained silent, not trusting my voice. "Grandpa, can I tell you a secret?" "Of course. I found Daddy crying in your old chair, the one you gave him when you moved. He was holding a picture of you and him when he was little. I thought about Jason as a child, eager to please, quick to laugh, his hand always finding mine when we crossed the street. I thought about Sarah's journal, about her fear that our son had lost his way, about her hope that it wasn't too late." "Emma, can you do something for me?" I asked. "Anything, Grandpa. Tell your daddy that chairs are for sitting in, not just looking at. And sometimes the door that gets closed can be opened again. He'll understand." After we hung up, I sat on my patio watching the sunset paint the red rocks gold. I thought about family, not the idealized version we see in holiday commercials, but the messy, complicated reality. About how love can be twisted by greed and insecurity, but might still exist underneath the damage. I thought about the Christmas coming up in 5 months. About whether I could find the strength to try again with a son who had broken my heart. About whether some doors, once locked, should remain that way for your own protection. I don't have all the answers yet, but I know this: family isn't defined by blood or obligation. It's defined by love, respect, and showing up for each other day after day. It's defined by unlocking doors, not locking them, by welcoming people in, not shutting them out. Sometimes the hardest lesson to learn is knowing when to walk away from those who hurt you, and when to give them one more chance to prove they've changed. I don't know if Jason deserves that chance, but Emma and Noah do, and maybe, just maybe, so does the father who still lives somewhere inside me, hoping against hope that his son will find his way back home. If you enjoyed this story, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. To hear the next story, just click on the box on the screen. Thank you so much for listening.